Good morning, I'm Gretchen Ho. It is a Thursday. It is July 24, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Let's get to the stories that matter today. Storm warning signals have been raised in some parts of the country due to the threat posed by super tropical storm or severe tropical storm Emong. Meanwhile, State Weather Bureau Pag-asa is also tracking the movement of tropical storm Dante. The first Marcos-Trump meeting has resulted in a 19% tariff rate for the Philippines. This outcome, however, faces criticism from several lawmakers who do not consider it a favorable deal. And the Pacquiao-Barrios showdown is over, but the hype in boxing continues after PNP Chief General Nicolas Torre III accepted a fistfight challenge from Davao City Acting Mayor Baste Duterte.
Marami ang nasalanta ngayon ng bagyo at baha. Maybe we can use this moment or this opportunity for to raise funds. Tulbaran sa sundukan para maganda at para medyo marami-rami ang ma-raise natin.
Pag-asa is monitoring multiple weather systems currently. Severe tropical storm Emong was last spotted some 245 kilometers west of Bacnotan, La Union. It may pass close to Pangasinan this afternoon and make landfall over Ilocos region tonight or tomorrow early morning. Meanwhile, tropical storm Dante was at 90 kilometers east-northeast of Itbayat, Batanes. It moves away from the Philippine landmass. The Weather Bureau is also monitoring a low-pressure area outside the Philippine Area of Responsibility. It has a high potential of developing into a tropical depression within the next 24 hours. The southwest monsoon or habagat is affecting central and northern Luzon or southern Luzon, as well as Visayas and Mindanao. It will trigger monsoon rains and occasional rain showers. Due to severe tropical storm Emong, the northern portion of Pangasinan and western portion of La Union are now under signal number 3. Those under signal number 2 are Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, the rest of La Union, the western portion of Apayao, Abra, and Kalinga, as well as Mountain Province, Ifugao, Benguet, the central portion of Pangasinan, and western portion of Nueva Vizcaya. Over 10 areas, meanwhile, are under storm signal number 1. They are now flashed on your screen. As rains continue to drench Metro Manila and nearby provinces, many are asking how much more are we expecting and what should residents prepare for? Joining us now is Manila DRRMO's resident meteorologist Emerson Gilmore Austria. Magandang umaga po sa inyo. Welcome to the show.
Magandang umaga po.
Una-una, kamusta naman po sa Manila? Ano pong lagay ng ating mga kalsada?
Sa ngayon po, okay naman po ang lugar po dito sa Metro Manila. Subsided na po yung mga expected flooded areas po namin.
Oo, kasi nakita po natin noong mga nakarang araw, no, maraming mga clean up na nangyari. Ano po yung pinaka-vulnerable po na madalas yung binabantayan? Siyempre, alam po natin kasama doon ng Espanya, doon po sa may Rojas Boulevard banda. So, sa inyo po, ano po mga minomonitor ninyo kadalasan?
Ang madalas po namin minomonitor po na areas for flooded areas po is yung kahabaan po ng Taft Avenue. Lalong-lalo na po yung Taft UN, Taft Calao, Taft Vito Cruz, sama na po natin yung sa may Espanya po. At saka yung vicinity po ng City Hall and vicinity ng around SM Manila po.
Ano po yung pangunahing dahilan kaya nagbabaha dito sa mga lugar na ito?
Main reason po talaga niyan is yung basura po. Kahit anong gawin pong linis ng City of Manila or ng mga tauhan po ng City Hall, kasama po namin, is hindi po talaga maiwasan na nagiging parte po ng pagbaha yung mga ang basura po.
Oo, tama ho kayo, no? Talagang perwisyo talaga yung basura na yan, no? Pero alam po natin na bukod po doon, ito pong basura ay dumadalo yan sa mga system, no? Doon sa drainage system po natin, pati na rin sa pumping station na siyang nagsasala dito sa tubig na may basura. Hindi po ba dahil din doon? I mean, kamusta naman yung mga pumping station po natin, pati yung drainage system natin?
Sa pumping stations and drainage system po natin, okay naman po siya as of now, pero yung ulan po, yung ganong kahabang ulan po kasi hindi po talaga kayang i-hold ng ating drainage system. So, ang ginawa po ng buting alkalde namin na si Mayor Isko Moreno, kasagsagan po ng ulan, we are proudly saying po na nagdedeklag po si Mayor Isko, kasama po ang ibang tauhan po ng City Hall, nakamonitor po siya sa declogging around UN Avenue. And ang kinagandahan naman po, kahit po nagbabaha sa City of Manila, mas bumibilis naman po yung pag-subside ng mga tubig po.
Oo. Pero sa nakikita po natin no, na parang pag-declog at ito clean up ng mga drainage, usually doon sa may opening, no? Kasi yun naman talaga yung accessible. I mean, paano naman po kaya yung nasa loob ng drainage na nagka-clog na? I mean, how is that cleanup process?
Sa ganyang matters naman po, same pa rin po naman for the drainage system. Siyempre, unang-una po yung declogging po niyan. Pangalawa po is yung pag-clean around naman po dito sa may area, sa may area ng mga kalsada para hindi na po unti-unti pumasok. Pagdating naman po sa mga pumping stations, mayroon pong mga kanya-kanya pong ahensya na na naka-assign to clean po yung mga ganong pumping stations or mapa citywide po yan or national na pumping stations.
I mean, gaano karami po yung basura na na-access po ng team ng Manila given that marami po rin areas no na walang opening. Yung basura ba nalilinis yun totally o marami rin talagang bumabara pa?
Let's say siguro 80% po nalilinis po namin, pero worst is meron po talagang natitira, meron pong bumabara.
How many pumping stations does Manila have currently? And gaano karami po doon ng online? At gaano karami ang defective?
If I am not mistaken po, ang Manila ay merong 19 pumping stations po. And lahat naman po yun ay gumagana, mapamaliit na pumping station o malaking pumping station.
Lahat po ay gumagana, oo. Kasi sabi po ng isang congressman, and we will have him later on the show, that malaki po ang ginastos dito no, para sa flood control project, yung sa pumping station, pero hindi po nagamit. Hindi natapos yung proyekto. I mean, would you have insight into that?
No comment po sa ganong situation po kasi yung mga pumping stations naman po namin sa Manila, kaya po nang sabi sa inyo, mapamalit man o mapalaki, pati po yung main drainage system po namin, tsaka yung dinadaanan po nun or yung waterways, yung mga estero, lahat naman po yan na nilinis namin after po ng kagaya po na ito, yung dumaang bagyo, dumaang sunod na ulan, nalilinis naman po namin kagad.
So, paano niyo po malalaman kung yung water level po ay darating na po sa state of flooding diyan sa Manila? Meron po ba kayong parang mga metrics na parang ito kung ganito po kalakas ang ulan, siguradong babahana?
Ang nagiging way po namin para po malaman kung paano po namin na-monitor or ina-observe po yung pagbaha sa City of Manila. Ang Manila DRM office po ay nagro-roving po kapag nakikita po namin na mayroon na pong nagbabahang specific part, lalo po sa may Taft Avenue, sinisimulan na po ng aming team yan na mag-roving. And then, as time passes by po, inaano po namin yun, ina-assess po namin kung nagsasubside na po kagad or tuluyan pa rin po ba siyang tumataas o kung mas matagal po ba siya nagsistay.
Kumbaga parang medyo mano-mano po ang ating proseso na pag nakikita natin and then we react. But of course, we do know that we are monitoring another tropical depression forming in the Philippine Area of Responsibility. At last year nga po, kung matatandaan niyo po, July po yon, 6 na magkakasunod yun na bagyo. Ano pong pinaplano po ng Manila tungkol dito? Because yun nga, parang kung pwede sana, preventive instead of reactive. What is the Manila government planning?
Sa ngayon po, minamaximize po namin lahat po ng aming efforts and resources po na tulungan po ang kapwa Manileño na unti-unti pong i-adapt unang-una po yung sa cleanliness po ng paligid para matulungan din po kami na bumagal po ang pagbaha or mas maganda po sana na hindi na po magbaha ng dahil po sa basura. Also po, 24/7 pong monitoring ang aming team sa weather situation and patuloy po kami naglalabas ng mga weather advisories para po pag-aware din po ang kapwa Manileño namin na ito po yung current situation ng ating weather sa City of Manila, pati po yung pagtulong po namin sa mga kapwa namin Manileño. In terms naman po, for let's say yung mga emergency response po namin.
Makakatulong po ba kung magdagdag pa ng pumping station, pati ma-update po yung drainage system dyan sa Manila?
Actually, it will be a big help po sa amin. Lalo po, makakatulong po yung mga pumping station na mas mapabilis po i-subside yung baha sa City of Manila.
So maaaring kulang din po yung pumping station. Okay,
Yes,
bukod nga po dun sa problem natin sa basura. Okay, maraming salamat sa iyo for the update and for giving us a better view of Manila's problems when it comes to bilang panghuli lang po, idadagdag ko lang itong Dolomite Beach na alala ko lang. How is that affecting the drainage of the water from our streets in Manila?
Yung regarding naman po sa Dolomite Beach, yung Dolomite Beach naman po natin is nami-maintain naman po yung kalinisan po noon, kaya hindi naman po namin nakikita problem yun or nagiging rason po ng pagtaas po ng baha dahil po sa basura.
Oo, meron po kasi nagsabi na parang nagka-clog nga doon kasi kailangan lilinisin muna yung tubig imbis na lumabas na lang po ito.
As of now, wala pa naman pong reported sa amin na naging rason po yun ng pagbaha around that area po. Kasi nakikita po namin na may-maintain naman po yun. Siguro po nagkakaroon lang ng times na nasasakto po na meron talagang natitira doon na basura. Pero as per our observation po, wala naman pong ganong scenario.
Alright, thank you very much for the updates. And for answering our questions, we have Manila City's resident meteorologist, Emerson Gilmore Austria. Now, speaking about pumping stations, Manila Representative Rolando Valeriano is sounding the alarm on a 774 million peso flood control project in Tondo that failed to deliver. The Sunog Apog pumping station, intended to ease flooding, will face scrutiny in the 2026 budget hearings. And he joins us now on Morning Matters to break it down. Magandang umaga po sa inyo, Congressman.
Good morning po, Ma'am Gretchen. Good morning to all the televiewers.
Okay, Congressman, I just wanted you to react to that interview with the Manila DRRMO. Sabi po nila na okay naman daw po yung mga pumping station natin, all working. Ang main problem ng Manila ay itong basura. And syempre, welcome naman po pag nagdagdag ng pumping station. What would you have to say?
Totoo naman po yun. Actually, na-alarm lang po ako dahil 3 araw yata yung interview nung ating alkalde ng Maynila na sinasabi niya yung Sunog Apog pumping station daw na ginastusan ng 700 million plus ay hindi gumagana at pinagawa ng congressman without naming names. So, yan pong, to be clear, yan pong Sunog Apog pumping station ay pinagawa noong 2018 pa. During my predecessor's time, hindi pa ho ako congressman noon. Ang di ko lang maintindihan o ang di ko lang maunawaan kung bakit ayaw pangalanan ng alkalde natin yung congressman. Although nakikisimpatya po ako dahil binaha naman talaga yung lugar ko, yung Distrito 2. Kaya lang po, ang dami nagtatawagan at ang binabas ngayon ng mga vlogger niya ay ako dahil ako ang congressman ngayon. Yan po ay pinagawa nung nakaraan, request nung nakaraang congressman at natapos noong 2020. As a matter of fact, tuloy-tuloy po ang follow-up ko dyan sa DPWH na ponduhan ng panibago or paganahin niyang sunog apog pumping station. Naintindihan ko naman po kung bakit ayaw niyang pangalanan yung congressman na yun kasi yun po yung kaalyado niya nung nakaraang eleksyon na tinalo ko.
Napupunta po sa inyo ang sisi, ano?
Ang blame po ngayon, napupunta sa akin, kaya gusto ko rin po linawin, as early as 2023, nung di po gumagana yan, ako po gumawa na ng letter sa DPWH. Pero even before 2023, bago ako po nag-request sa DPWH ng augmentation sa funding, tuloy-tuloy po kada budget hearing at every now and then, ako po yung nagpa-follow up sa regional director, even to the Secretary of DPWH. At sana nga po ngayon, since nagiging issue na naman yan dahil nga po sa pagbaha sa siyudad ng Maynila, magsalita rin po ang DPWH regarding dyan sa issue na yan. And once and for all, mapagawa na nga po dahil talaga naman pong inaabot ng baha yung lugar namin, lalo na yung Hermosa. Alam niyo po, hindi nyo na itatanong, hanggang ngayong oras na to, ako yung congressman na umuwi talaga araw-araw. Wala ko ako ibang bahay kundi dyan sa Tondo, sa distrito. At nakikita ko how we suffer pagdating dyan sa baha. Hermosa, Gagalangin, Juan Luna. Mula po nung masira yung pumping station na yan, lagi po nagbabaha.
Oo. Bakit ho ba naantala itong project na ito? Sabi niyo nga, matagal na ito.
Natapos po yan ng 2020 pero hindi po yan napagana. Since then po, up to now, pero lately po, last May, nakikita ko na po at sinabi naman sa akin ng DPWH, napondohan po nila. Siguro nahirapan din po silang maglagay ng another funding para ma-repair or kung ano man yung depression niyan. Pero kasi sinabi ko na nung una pa dati sa White Elephant Project na 700, almost 1 billion pesos na hindi po gumagana. Ako po ay tahimik na nagtatrabaho at pinipilit ko nga na mapagana yan bilang isang kinatawan. Panay po ang request ko sa DPWH. Kaya lamang po nitong mga huling ang 3 gabi yata na may mali siya yung sinasabi ng alkalde natin na pinagawa ng congressman yung sunog apog pumping station na hindi gumagana at ayaw niyang pangalanan yung congressman. At naunawaan ko naman siya dahil yung congressman na yun nga po yung kaalyado niya, si Congressman Carlo Lopez.
Congressman, kayo po ba ay maghahain ng resolusyon para maimbestigahan itong proyektong ito?
Opo, at sa budget hearing po, siguradong tatanungin ko rin po yan sa DPWH. At ngayon pa lang pong oras na to, nakipag-ugnayan na po ako sa DPWH. Actually, bago kahit puro isang taon, nakipag-ugnayan na ako. Kaya alam ko po yung istorya niyan. Natapos yung sa Bitas Pumping Station, napagana nila, pero yung sunog apog pumping station, magkakadikit po yan eh. Hindi pa nila napapagana up to now. At huwag po kayo magdalala, marami kong technical issue. Ako po yung nakipag-ugnayan na rin sa mga engineers natin para malaman yung totoong sitwasyon yan. At pagdating po ng tamang panahon, by next week po, kami po yung nasa Kongreso na ulit.
Oo, mahal po ba paganahin? Kasi kung sabi po ninyo, kompleto na yung proyekto, papaganahin na lang, gaano kalaki po ba ang kinakailangan?
774 million po inabot yung proyekto, pero mukhang defective. At ito pong Mayo, mukhang napondohan nila yung repair nito in the amount of 90 million plus. So, tingnan po natin. Actually, nagtatrabaho naman po yung DPWH at inaasahan ko nga po na maglalabas din sila ng statement regarding dito sa sunog apog kung kailan ito matatapos, kailan mawawala ang baha. At isa pa pong mga recurrence dito, nagbara din po yung mga drainage dito sa lugar namin. Gawa naman po ng NLEX, SLEX connector. So marami po talagang marami rin talagang factor para magkaroon ng baha. And lastly siguro yung climate change dahil hindi lang naman po sa Maynila nagkaroon ng baha. Halos sa buong metropolitan dito sa Metro Manila binaha din po. Kaya lamang po ako nagpa-interview ngayon kasi nga medyo malisyoso po yung deklarasyon ng alkalde ng Maynila na sinisisi niya yung congressman ng Maynila, especially yung district po na hindi gumagana without naming names. Kaya po ako lumabas.
Okay. Sana masilip din po yung contractor na gumawa nito at bakit defective. In the meantime,
Opo.
maraming salamat po. No? Abangan po namin yan, yung investigation na yan as we look into our drainage system and pumping stations. Maraming salamat po. We have
Salamat
Manila's 2nd District Representative Congressman Rolando Valeriano clearing those issues up. In the meantime, let's circle back to the two storms affecting our weather. And to explain this, we are joined by News 5's weather specialist, Alvin Pura. Magandang umaga sa iyo, Alvin.
Magandang umaga, Gretchen.
Good to see you. Okay. Unang-una, there is Emong, there is also Dante. Ang medyo nakakalito dito para sa akin, di ba madalas pinapangalanan natin according to the alphabet yung ating mga typhoon at mga tropical storm and tropical depression. Pero bakit si Dante ay nasa may kanan ng Pilipinas at si Emong ay nasa may kaliwa?
Okay, Gretchen, may nagtanong na rin sa akin yan. Dapat daw kadalasan na nanggagaling nga sa right side yung bagyo. At ito namang si Emong ay nandito sa left side. Actually, si Emong ay nag-start dito sa right side. So bumaba yan, dumaan dito sa extreme northern Luzon as a low pressure area and then nag-develop as a bagyo or a tropical cyclone. Banda dito na sa may West Philippine Sea. So nagmumukhang nanggaling siya sa left side. Pero actually galing siya sa right side. Pero bakit ganon? Nag-U-turn siya or nagkakaroon siya ng looping na track? Dahil meron siyang tinatawag na parang interaction dito sa bagyong Dante. So yan yung tinatawag nating Fujiwara effect. O meron tayong tinatawag na parang sayaw ng dalawang bagyo. Kung titingnan nyo itong ating satellite image at nilagyan ko yan ng tinatawag nating isobars, nagsishare sila or magkasama sila sa isang wind field. Kadalasan, kapag meron tayong dalawang bagyo, within at least 1,500 kilometers ang difference ng kanilang center to center and hindi nalalayo yung kanilang lakas. In this case, tropical storm at severe tropical storm. At dahil nagsishare sila ng wind field, nagkakaroon sila ng interaction. So, etong si Dante ay lalabas na nga ng at paakyat. Ito namang si Emong, bumaba nga yan at nagkaroon nga siya ng looping track. So para siyang umiikot sa isang common point dahil nga doon sa tinatawag nating Fujiwara effect. So ganun yung naging pagkilos ng Emong dahil nagkaroon siya ng interaction dito sa Bagyong Dante. As of now, habang papaakyat si Emong, based sa pagtaya ng Pag-asa, nag-start ng mag-recurve o nag-U-turn na po etong si Emong at susunod na po yan dito sa Bagyong Dante. Gretchen?
Okay. Ibig sabihin, sa kwentong pag-ibig, si Emong ayaw umalis si Dante at hinihila niya ito pabalik?
Oo, parang babalik itong si Emong at susundan niya itong si Dante. Ayaw niya itong palisin. Ito naman si Dante, gusto namang umalis at gusto niya nang iwan si Emong. Pero si Emong hindi pa makalet go at susunod yan dito kay
Ibig
Dante.
sabihin,
dahil nga
Alvin,
nagsishare silang windfield, magkasama sila sa isang daloy
weather
ng hangin.
system. Ibig sabihin, magtatagal pa. Gaano katagal kaya ito? I mean, yung pag-ulan dito because of Emong and Dante.
Okay.
At anong mga area yung apektado?
Okay, itong si Emong at Dante ay nagpapalakas ng ating habagat or southwest monsoon. Ito magandang disclaimer, Gretchen. Meron tayong mga nakataas na warnings, tropical cyclone wind signal warnings at mga rainfall warning dito sa northern Luzon. Pero kung titingnan nyo yung satellite image natin, ayan, relatively clear skies tayo ngayon, for now, dito po sa Northern Luzon. Dahil nagigitnaan tayo ng dalawang sama ng panahon or dalawang bagyo. Ang tawag namin dyan sa meteorology ay cold area. Ang cold area, relatively maganda talaga ang panahon. So dahil dyan, mapapansin nyo, araw po araw. Pero wag tayong pakakampante at mag-ready tayo. Dahil merong nakataas na warnings at mga storm signals nga dyan sa mga areas na yan, particularly sa Ilocos region, dahil papunta dyan ang Bagyong Dante. Since magre-recurve si Bagyong Dante, papunta dyan ang Bagyong Emong, since magre-recurve ang Bagyong Emong, ito yung kanyang mga malalakas na pagulan at malalakas na bugso ng hangin, pupunta rin yan eventually dito po sa mga areas na yan. So, better prepared tayo dito po sa Ilocos region, particularly mamayang gabi hanggang madaling araw, dahil yung black area na yan, yung gray area na yan, dark skies, masungit na panahon, malalakas na bugso ng hangin, sasabit yan dito sa Northern Luzon at ilang bahagi ng Central Luzon. Samantalang, ito namang areas sa may western section ng Luzon, effects pa rin yan ng habagat. Kasama dyan ang Metro Manila, meron tayong mga possible na malalakas na pagulan pa rin dito sa Zambales at Bataan, ilang parts ng Central Luzon. Although minsan nagpapakita pong araw dyan, Tarlac, Pampanga, Bulacan, itong Rizal, maulan pa rin ngayon. Metro Manila nga, And then, itong areas ng Cavite, Batangas, Occidental Mindoro, and ilang bahagi ng Mimaropa particularly. Ito pong area nga ng Palawan, itong northern parts ng Palawan, Occidental Mindoro again, at ito pong areas ng Calabarzon. Ito namang Visayas at Mindanao, maganda pong panahon natin dyan, malayo yung ating habagat or southwest monsoon, yung tinatawag nating axis nito. So relatively, mostly western section ng ating bansa, particularly ito pong western section ng Central Luzon at Southern Luzon area at Mimaropa. Ngayon nga, maaraw sa Northern Luzon, pero again, ito po ay kikilos, papalapit dyan. So mamayang gabi hanggang early morning, mamayang madaling araw, diyan natin mararamdaman yung malalakas na bugso ng hangin na may kasamang malalakas na pagulan. So, doble ingat po tayo dyan sa
Ibig sabihin kung ikaw ay taga Northern Luzon, pwede ka magsingit ng labada mo habang medyo medyo maaraw pa, no?
Yes,
Pero
tama
dahil uulan din.
Yes,
Gaano katagal kaya itong Fujiwara effect?
Ito pong Fujiwara effect niya is yung kilos lang ng ating bagyo. So, habang nandyan yung dalawang circulation na yan, magtutuloy-tuloy yan. At ito nga ang bagyong si Emong, if ever makasurvive niya yung kanyang landfall, usually pag nagla-landfall ang bagyo is nade-deprive ng power or nade-deprive ng moisture sa dagat. So, nade-deprive ng energy. So, humihina yung bagyo natin kapag nagla-landfall. If na-survive niya yung pagla-landfall niyan, susunod nga yan kay Bagyong Dante. At possible silang maging isang malaking sirkulasyon na lang if ever nandito na po sa labas ng ating Philippine Area of Responsibility. Again, pwede kang magsingit ng mga gagawin ngayong araw na ito dahil medyo maaraw pa, pero doble ingat pa rin po tayo, especially mamayang hapon, hanggang gabi, hanggang early morning tomorrow, yan, early morning madaling araw mamaya.
When do we expect landfall of severe tropical storm Emong at saan yun mangyayari?
Okay, based sa track ng Pag-asa, sa ngayon nga is nag-start na siyang mag-recurve at nagsa-southeastward na siya. So, nag-U-turn na yan. Eventually, mamayang gabi hanggang madaling araw, possible na yan mag-landfall dito sa mga areas ng Ilocos Region hanggang Ilocos Sur or Ilocos or La Union area. If ever mas mababa pa yan, mas mababa pa yung kanyang dadaanan. And then possible mag-traverse yan sa Northern Luzon bukas ng madaling araw hanggang early morning.
Okay, we are monitoring another tropical depression that could form in the Philippine Area of Responsibility. Ano pang nakikita mo doon at gaano katagal itong pag-ulan? Aabot ba ito ng weekend?
Maliban dito sa dalawang bagyo nating binabantayan sa loob ng PAR, meron tayong low pressure area banda dito sa east ng Visayas. Ito ay nasa around lagpas 1,300 kilometers pa layo sa ating landmass. Ito naman ay hindi natin nakikitang mag-landfall. Yan ay aakyat lamang dito sa side ng ating Philippine Area of Responsibility. Yung rainfall natin, significantly mababawasan sa weekend if ever makaakyat na po itong dalawang bagyo natin. Pero meron pa rin tayong matataas na chances ng pagulan dulot ng habagat, particularly sa western section ng Luzon. Gretchen?
Okay, at least alam natin ang binabantayan natin. In the meantime, maraming salamat sa iyo, Alvin Pura, sa pagpapaliwanag sa mga ating nararanasan ngayon na nakakaiba sa klima. Maraming salamat ulit. News 5 Weather Specialist Alvin Pura for joining us on Morning Matters today. In other news, while Malacanang proclaims the new lower U.S. tariff rate a significant achievement, many critics counter that this is a one-sided bargain. Let's discuss that and more with economist J.C. Punong Bayan coming right up when Morning Matters returns after a quick break. Good morning, Impression on here on Morning Matters. We talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. Lawmakers are divided on the 1 percentage point U.S. tariff cut, with some praising the outcome and others blasting it as a humiliating deal for the Philippines. Here is the report.
The first face-to-face meeting between President Bongbong Marcos and his American counterpart Donald Trump has yielded the Philippines a slightly reduced tariff rate of 19%. Trump previously slapped Manila with a 17% levy during his so-called Liberation Day on April 2nd. He then made the surprise decision to increase that rate to 20% earlier this month before lowering it by a mere 1 point this Wednesday. U.S. exports, in return, will not be subjected to any duties. Marcos has characterized this development as victory, with Trump even calling him a tough negotiator.
We do a lot of business with you. It's a lot of income coming in for both groups. But I was surprised to see the kind of numbers. They're very big, and they're going to get bigger under what we're doing and what we're proposing.
Now, 1% might seem like a very small concession. However, when you put it in real terms, it is a significant achievement.
Under a new trade deal with the U.S., Marcos said the Philippines will scrap tariffs on American cars and import more U.S. soy, wheat, and pharmaceuticals, a move he believes will lower prices of medicines. But some lawmakers have weighed in. Presidential sister and Senator Amy Marcos says a mere 1% reduction in tariff rates for Philippine goods while having zero tariffs for U.S. goods certainly does not look like a win for the Philippines. Meanwhile, Senator Tito Soto calls Marcos's meeting with Trump a most fruitful and productive visit, which the former Senate president says has direct benefits for the Philippines. Senator Ping Lacson, however, was not happy at all with the tariff cut. He said it is the worst insult that a host can throw at his guest. It is time for us to look for other trade partners. Washington has also announced it would provide over 3 billion pesos worth of foreign aid to Manila. U.S. State Secretary Marco Rubio said the $60 million assistance would support energy, maritime, and economic growth programs. The State Department has expressed its intent in working with the U.S. Congress to shell out 825 million pesos or $15 million. That's to support private sector development in the Luzon Economic Corridor. The funding would be placed in investments such as transport, logistics, energy, and semiconductors.
Joining us now to help make sense of the economic impact of the Marcos-Trump meeting is J.C. Punong Bayan, Assistant Professor at the UP School of Economics. Magandang umaga sa'yo. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Gretchen. Thanks for having me.
Okay, this 1 percentage point reduction in tariff is being framed as a win by the administration. According to President Marcos, it is a significant achievement. But some are saying, particularly Senator Lacson is saying, that this is the worst insult that could be given by a very close ally. Where are you at on this?
Well, Gretchen, we have to take into account that this is still higher than the original 17% tariff that U.S. President Donald Trump set back in April during his Liberation Day. So one would hope that the Marcos delegation would somehow be able to reduce the tariff, maybe lower than 17%. And one would also think that we kind of deserve a much lower tariff given our strategic partnership with the U.S., especially where the West Philippine Sea is concerned. When you look at the experience of other countries as well, who are lining up and negotiating with Trump, Indonesia, for example, was able to reduce its tariff rate from 32% to 19%. Vietnam, 46%, they more than halved it to 20%, and in Japan, from 25% to 15%. So the 1 percentage point reduction is very marginal.
That's correct, ano? And galing tayo sa 17% back in April. But if you take a look at the negotiations with other countries, particularly Japan, that was from 25% to 15%. And President Trump said Japan had agreed to invest $550 billion at my direction. What leverage do we have here on the negotiating table that you think that we could use to be able to lower the 19% tariff down?
Well, I think, Gretchen, our strongest trump card would be our partnership with the U.S. when it comes to the West Philippine Sea. And as I said, one would hope that maybe the U.S. sees the value of that. But you have to remember that even back in April, shortly after Liberation Day, there were efforts coming from the Marcos economic managers. They went to the U.S. They kind of they tried to negotiate with the Trump administration to no avail. And then even with the president himself speaking with U.S. President Donald Trump, again, there doesn't seem to be much progress here. But I think President Trump also mentioned that he clings to this notion that other nations will pay for these tariffs He said in his social media post yesterday. Again, going back to the basic economics of tariffs, the American people will have to pay higher prices for the things they import from us. In fact, the Americans have more to worry about when it comes to all of these tariffs. But that's not to say that the Philippines will not be heard. Again, the U.S. is our biggest export destination, specifically for semiconductors, food, and agricultural products. So all of these sectors may possibly be hurt in the Philippines.
How do you think that 1%, 1 percentage point tariff cut could affect the exports to the U.S.? I mean, paano kaya natin ito mararamdaman?
Well, first of all, there could be direct effects. We have a number of big semiconductor firms located here in the Philippines, and their biggest market would be the U.S. So I think they will feel the effects of the tariffs the most. But of course, we have many agricultural exports as well, food manufactured products as well. So there's that direct effect. But I think we should also worry about the indirect effect of all of this, because remember that Trump is imposing tariffs not just on the Philippines, but most other countries of the world as well. And many multilateral agencies have already downgraded their growth forecasts for this year. Very recently, ADB also reduced the growth forecast for the region as well as the Philippines. So there's a very high risk that with the disruptions in the global trading system, the global economic system will also kind of crash a bit. And of course, there's so much uncertainty, policy uncertainty right now. And then I think another risk would be higher inflation, because if inflation increases in the U.S., then that will force the hand of the Federal Reserve to increase their interest rates, similar to what we have seen back in 2022, 2023, and many central banks globally will follow suit. Most likely the Bangko Sentral of the Philippines as well, especially when we see the full effects of the tariffs. So that will create another round of discomfort and pain, economic pain, not just for Americans, but also for the rest of the world.
If you take a look at our exports to the United States, tama ka, no? Majority of it, or more than 50%, belong to the electronics and semiconductors industry, office and machine parts, and the agriculture exports are significant but smaller. I mean, we also export coconut oil to them, knowing that the Philippines is a major coconut exporter. Pero hindi ba parang yung pagdating naman sa mga electronics and semiconductors, there is an exemption in tariff rates because of the information technology agreement. Have you heard of that?
Yes, maybe a few weeks ago, I think there were news about Trump or the Trump administration thinking of exempting certain products from all of these tariffs, including semiconductors. But in fact, I think Trump reversed that or kind of walked back on that idea. And in fact, he wants to impose tariffs on things like copper, for example. And copper being, of course, an important, a crucial component in the building of semiconductors. So in fact, there's still a lot of uncertainty. Semiconductors are not out of this tariff trouble yet. So we might yet see tariffs affecting the semiconductor industry. In fact, many economists and analysts are quite fearful that there could be a big disruption when it comes to semiconductors still.
Fish and marine products from the Philippines were valued at over $1.2 billion in 2022, with the U.S. ranking as the top buyer. So that could be an industry that is most affected here, agriculture, fish and marine. But if you take a look at other countries in Southeast Asia, we have Indonesia also at 19%. We have Vietnam at 20%. And we do know they are our competitors when it comes to the manufacturing chain. Well, doesn't that put us on level ground with these countries?
Well, One would think that, but in fact, there are significant barriers in terms of attracting all of these manufacturing investments in the Philippines vis-a-vis our ASEAN neighbors. One of the problems with the Philippine economy is that our export manufacturing sector is not very diversified. So when it comes to the list of products that you mentioned, semiconductors would be the key export of the Philippines, and then all of the other types of categories of products that we export are actually very small compared to semiconductors. So they are far second and third compared to semiconductors. So moving forward, we need to diversify further our export industry because we're exporting too much semiconductors and too little of everything else. When in fact, there could be, as you mentioned, fisheries, for example, and then fruits as well as other food manufacturers. So these could be very lucrative industries when it comes to exports, but we need to attract many more investments so that we can boost our export of these products.
Okay. The current trade deficit with the United States stands at $4.9 billion, which means that we earn more, right, from this relationship than they do. I mean, if you take a look at yung baga parang in realistic terms, paano kaya ito makaka-apekto sa atin? Mostly ba doon sa mga exporter natin? Dahil usually pag may product galing Amerika, pag dumadating sa Pilipinas, mahal. Alam natin yan, in practical terms. So mostly this will be felt by those industries that you mentioned?
Yes, just a small correction. We actually have a small trade surplus with respect to the U.S. And then conversely, the U.S. has a trade deficit with respect to the Philippines. So that's the reason why the U.S. is actually aiming at all of these countries in which they incur trade deficits with respect to other countries. Trump thinks that the U.S. is being taken advantage of by all of these other countries. But having said that, yes, you're right that exporters will be hurt in semiconductors and other industries. But on the other hand, you have to remember that Trump also announced that he will make an open market out of the trading relationship with the Philippines so that allegedly there will be zero tariffs imposed on automobiles imported by the Philippines from the U.S. So in other words, the deal that Marcos struck with the Trump White House is that it will be a bit easier for the Trump administration to export, for the U.S. to export their products to the Philippines, specifically in automobiles, but we will have a harder time penetrating their market. So it's a very uneven relationship. But I'm also led to think that do we really need more big, supersized American SUVs in the Philippines with the traffic congestion and all? Maybe the Marcos administration should have lobbied more aggressively so that we have, at least for some products, some of these could be exported more freely into the U.S. at the same time that the U.S. wants to penetrate the Philippine market more.
If you take a look at that particular sector, though, the automobile industry, we don't produce or manufacture our own cars. So the direct hit would probably be on Chinese cars, right, and Japanese cars. Is that correct?
Exactly. So we don't have a car manufacturing industry in the Philippines, except for, of course, certain big auto players like Toyota, etc. However, it's, if you look at the Philippines' economic history, back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s, we were actually able to produce or manufacture cars here at home. But we kind of neglected the manufacturing industry, the auto manufacturing industry, so that now we're by no means a key player in this area. Compare that with the current experience of Vietnam, for example. They're so advanced that they're actually one of the bigger exporters of electric vehicles. And the U.S. is their biggest market for all of that. Well, of course, one could say that they're a victim of their own success in the sense that they have become an export powerhouse We've not become that, and now Trump is targeting Vietnam and not us. However, I think it's to the credit of Vietnam that they were able to develop all of these industries precisely by allowing more investments into their country.
Okay, let's go back to the leverage the Philippines has in this on the negotiating table. Apart from the West Philippine Sea issue, where the Philippines could host American bases and store weapons, as we do know that is one of our cards here. The other thing that could be brought to the table is the role in the production chain of semiconductors, right? Because the Philippines is in the middle segment of that production chain. We do assembly, we do testing, we do packaging. Could the Philippines, I mean, as a close ally of the United States, help them in building a more independent economy in the semiconductor industry? I mean, pwede ba yun? Pwede ba yun natin gawing leverage?
Well, actually, when you look at the global value chains in semiconductors, we're not part of the higher value end of that production chain. Taiwan, of course, dominates this sector. So in the Philippines, we're not even able to build or manufacture semiconductor wafers or the more complete version of semiconductors, but something before that step. So we, as you mentioned correctly, we focus on packaging and assembly. So that's exactly the reason why the semiconductors would be the biggest export of the Philippines, but also our biggest import. So again, that points to the lack of diversity in the Philippines. So in other words, the components come to the Philippines, we package and assemble them somewhat in our factories here, and then we ship them again to other countries for final processing. So the dream is for the Philippines to be able to produce higher value-added goods, including final products, not just semiconductors, for example, laptops, entire laptops, smartphones, etc. And that's exactly what Vietnam is able to do now, but we're not able to do that. So I think there should be intense focus among policymakers to pursue export diversification and strengthening investments in these areas.
So that we are able to find other markets for our products and not just be on the receiving end, being a reactive economy to the trade war. Maraming salamat sa iyo for your insights today, for putting into context that 19% tariff by the United States. We have JC Punong Mayan, Assistant Professor at the UP School of Economics. Don't go away. More matters to discuss after the break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. PNP Chief General Nicolas Torre III says he is ready for a fistfight as challenged by acting Davao City Mayor Baste Duterte. Torre even proposed a boxing match this Sunday at the Araneta Coliseum, turning the clash into a charity event for typhoon and flood victims. The challenge came after Duterte accused Torre of targeting their family in a vlog. No word yet if Baste will show up.
Matapang ka lang naman, we have the position pero gusuntukan tayo. Arap ko makaya, bita. Sarap talaga kawain. Totoo lang.
Marami ang nasalanta ngayon ng bagyo at baha. Maybe we can use this moment or this opportunity for to raise funds. Tulbaran sa sundukan para maganda at para medyo marami-rami ang ma-raise natin.
Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla defended his use of humor in announcing class and work suspensions after netizens criticized his tone as unprofessional. Some felt his light approach was inappropriate for serious announcements. Remulla, however, insisted he did not insult or mislead anyone. He clarified that while his tone was casual, he never used foul language nor spread false information. Meanwhile, Bacoor in Cavite experienced flooding due to rains caused by the southwest monsoon. For more updates on the situation in the province, we are joined by Richard Kion, Director of the Bacoor Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office. Magandang umaga po sa inyo.
Magandang umaga po, ma'am. Magandang umaga po sa lahat ng inyong tagapanood, tagapakinig at taga-subaybay.
Oy, Richard, kamusta naman ho ang sitwasyon sa Bacoor, Cavite? Marami po bang mga pagbaha?
We experienced widespread flooding po simula po nung Tuesday ng umaga. Hanggang ngayon po, may mga areas pa rin po na may tubig. Ranging from around 6 inches hanggang 30 inches of water. Depende po yan dun sa location. Ang pagbaha po ay talagang dulot ng matinding pag-ulan, tuloy-tuloy at yung tubig baha actually ay malinaw. Isang indicator na talagang yung tubig ulan lang ito na naipon, na-overwhelm yung ating drainage system dito sa lungsod. Sa kabila po ng ating patuloy na paglilinis nito, siyempre po sa direktiba po ni Mayor Strike Revilla, ang ating pong lungsod ay meron po tayong river warriors, meron po tayong vacuum trucks na nag-iikot sa mga drainage natin na sumisipsip ng laman. At yung river warriors naman po natin, under po ng ating City Environment Services Department, ay all year round ang trabaho lang po niyan, maglinis po ng ating mga creeks, ng mga ating riverways. Pero sa kabila nga po ng lahat ng efforts na yan, ay talagang na-overwhelm pa rin po yung ating waterways and drainage systems natin.
Ito po ba ay karaniwang nangyayari sa Bacoor, Cavite? Or did we see something exceptional this time?
Pangyayari pong ito ay malimit naman pong nagkakabaha sa lungsod ng Bacoor considering na kami po ay geographically challenged. Ang lungsod ng Bacoor po ang nagsisilbing catch basin this side of the province. So may mga pagkakataon po kahit hindi po umuulan sa lungsod ng Bacoor, maaari pong talagang magkaroon ng pagbaha sa amin. May mga areas po kami before, although hindi na po ngayon masyadong prominent yan, pag nag-high tide, nagkakatubig pa rin. Kasi may mga barangay po kami, yung kanilang lugar, ay below sea level po talaga.
Okay. So ano po yung kamusta po yung sitwasyon ng mga pamilya dyan? Marami na po bang na-evacuate? At saan po sila ngayon?
Sa ngayon po ay meron pa rin po tayong 973 families na naka-house sa 45 evacuation centers na active po ngayon sa iba't ibang barangay ng lungsod ng Bacoor. Maayos naman po ang kalagayan nila. Patuloy po na pinapangalagaan ng lungsod ng city government. Pinoprovidean po natin sila ng hot meals doon sa kanilang tinutuluyan. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner provided by the city government po. At kahapon din po, nakapagsimula na rin po tayo makapag-provide ng relief goods dito po sa mga families na nasa evacuation center.
Okay, meron pa pong minomonitor na low pressure area sa Philippine Area of Responsibility. Ano po ang prediction po natin sa kung gaano ka magtatagal itong mga pamilya dito sa mga evacuation center, given na rin po yung mga matinding pagbaha sa mga kalsada?
Well, with the current forecast po, weather outlook po natin, ang nakikita po namin ay maaaring magtagal pa po sila sa evacuation centers hanggang bukas ng gabi o early Saturday morning. At yun nga po, nabanggit nyo, may weather systems pa rin po tayong binabantayan. Naging bagyo na nga po si Bagyong Dante at si Bagyong Emong. At meron pa pong papasok na isa pang low pressure area outside of the Philippine Area of Responsibility na maaari pa rin pong humila sa habagat. At malayo man po yung mga bagyo, talaga pong habagat ang nagpapaulan at nagpapabaha po sa aming lungsod.
Dahil napag-usapan na rin po namin kanina yung mga pumping station, kamusta naman po ang pumping station dyan sa Bacoor? Sapat po ba o kailangan na rin pong dagdagan at ma-update?
Sa ngayon po ay wala pong existing na pumping station sa lungsod ng Bacoor.
Walang pumping station?
Kasi kailangan po namin talagang magkaroon dito po sa aming lungsod. Pero hindi lang naman po yung pumping station ang kailangan pong mailagay sa amin. Kasi kahit po magkaroon po tayo ng pumping station, yun nga po, pagka sumasabay po yung high tide, kagaya po ngayong oras na to, high tide po at 1.5 meters po yung high tide. So mahihirapan din pong lumabas yung tubig. Dahil meron nga po kaming mga area na sadya pong below mean sea level po natin.
Pagka ganun po, hindi po sasapat yung pumping station? Tama po ba?
Makakatulong po siya para mapabilis, pero dahil po dun sa maraming mga proyekto na rin po na naisakatuparan ng pamahalaang lungsod. Sa pangunguna po yan, Mayor Strike Revilla, sa tulong po ni Congresswoman Lani at ni Senator Bong, ni Congressman Brian. Nagkatulong-tulong po din sila sa different infrastructure projects dito. Mabilis naman po talaga yung pagbaba ng tubig sa mga nakaraang panahon. Ngayon lang pong linggo na ito, na nakaranas uli kami ng pagtigil ng tubig ng ilang araw sa maraming lugar. So, kumbaga po, ang sinasabi ko, dati po talaga matagal, linggo, yung pong mga panahon 1980s po siguro, 1990s, linggo tumatagal yung pagbaha. Pero nito pong recent past 2 decades, bumilis na po yung pagbaba ng tubig, paglabas ng tubig. Dahil nga po dun sa iba't ibang mga proyekto at programang sinakatupa. Pero ngayon pong linggo na to, yun po yung medyo kakaiba, naranasan po uli namin na ilang araw na po may tubig pa rin. Pero yun nga po ay attributed namin dun sa tuloy-tuloy na pag-ulan. Again, nabanggit ko po, kami po, ngayon po ay nakakaranas tayo ng high tide at 1.5 meters. At ang lungsod po, under orange warning level pa rin po, rainfall warning. Orange pa rin po kami ngayon eh. So talaga pong sobra-sobra na po yung tubig na bumubuhos sa lungsod. At hindi lang po nga dito, pati po sa ibang parte ng Cavite, na dito po dumadaan yung tubig.
Richard, bilang panghuli, saan po hindi pa pwedeng dumaan? I mean, what is your advice for motorists?
Well, as of this time po, ay wala naman po tayong saradong kalsada sa ngayon. All roads remain passable to all types of vehicles as of this time.
Okay, maraming salamat sa iyo at sana talagang matugunan to ng mabilis at bumaba ng tubig, and we hope things don't worsen. We have Richard Kion, Director of the Bacoor Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office.
Salamat po.
The Health Department reminds the public that doxycycline is available for free with supply ensured, especially in evacuation centers. But the DOH is also urging the public to consult doctors first before taking it. The agency stressed that antibiotics should not be used for self-medication and must be taken only under medical supervision. Doxycycline is a recommended post-exposure preventive treatment for leptospirosis. And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you the right start to your morning. Let's go ahead and make the day matter. Please do stay dry. My name is Gretchen Ho. We are One News, all sides, all the time.